Again, look at this background. We went from
Huh?
drapes to we got like flowers. You're looking good while you're traveling.
I appreciate it. It's a tropical paradise that I happen to be in at this time, but I am leaving tomorrow, so this will all go away. So enjoy it while I can. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, you should definitely enjoy it because I'm pretty sure here in the DC area, even up all the way up in your northern Baltimore area, we're expecting some rain when you get back. So
Is it cold right now?
it's
Is it
it's actually been
freezing?
beautiful. No, it's been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
However, I do believe it's going to start dipping. Last week they've said
of
maybe we're
course.
going to get snow. Doesn't look like it's going to be snow. Looks like we'll get some rain, uh, but we'll be
Okay.
we'll be moving forward. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm definitely enjoying the background. Hopefully we don't have any bees or anything that pop up during the
We do
during the
we
show.
we have had some bees flying around here, so excuse me, I'll keep an eye out for those bees and you let me know if you see and or hear any.
We'll do. I'll keep an ear out for that. So looking good. I love the cup. Got my cup as well.
Yep,
So
at the old Ref the District Cup.
if you're interested in any kind of ref the district kind of swag, just let us know either here on YouTube or over on our Twitter. You can see it down there at ref the district. Don't forget we stream live 10 o'clock every Sunday. Please like and subscribe, hit that bell so you can continue seeing us, and go ahead and head out to our Twitter page as well and like us and follow us there. So we'd much appreciate your support as we continue this sportscast, much like we support our Washington teams. Lots to talk about this week, and we're going to start off as we normally do with our Washington football team.
I am really excited personally, and I don't know how long it is until the legal tampering starts. It's Monday
Tomorrow,
morning.
yep.
Is it midnight
Yep,
Eastern time? Is that when
right as
right
soon as
at
it hits
midnight?
midnight. Yep.
I am super psyched about that because I think it's just going to be a flurry of activity at like 12:01. You're
Oh yeah,
just going to see a bunch of
all
names
the
just bam bam
illegal
bam bam bam
tampering
bam.
is going on right now.
Exactly.
Like the
That's
illegal
right.
stuff's happening now. By the way, I have to agree. There was somebody I forget who it had who shared the sentiment, but they hate the term, and I do as well. Legal tampering. It does not go together. Like it's not should not be a thing. Like
Tampering is like illegal in
yeah,
by definition. Tampering is just
yeah,
kind of like an illegal term.
yeah.
So I don't know how you say it's legal.
An
And I don't
oxymoron.
really get why they do it. I mean, I understand that the new league year starts Wednesday, the
Mm-hmm.
17th. And I guess in the past they had a lot of issues with teams illegally tampering and then signing when the new league year started. But all that does is push it back a couple of days and they're doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
So what it did
Like
is
you
it just
said,
they realized that people were doing this. So instead of coming down on them for doing it, they just said, "We understand that you're going to do this. So we're going to make this period of time where it's okay to reach out and do this, because this is what it is. In case you're not a football fan, in case you don't understand what happens with this, what the tampering is this is where teams are reaching out to people, they're reaching out to agents, they're setting up deals, so that way when free agency starts we can start seeing things happen. And that's what it
right.
is. And so people were doing it beforehand because they wanted to be the one to woo these big free agencies, right? So Allen Robinson is a name that a lot of Washington football fans are familiar with, and they would like to see, come. He was tagged, by Chicago, but if he wasn't tagged, this is the period of time where Washington would be reaching out and is like, hey, how much is it going to take to bring you to the table? And then the agents, what they do during this period of time is they take all these calls and they're like, hey, Washington's willing to pay him 18 million. There's a couple names out there. Corey Davis is one of them. If Washington's like, hey, we'll pay you 13, but then another team's like, we'll pay you 18. They're gonna go. That agent's gonna go back to Washington and be like, they're willing to do
They
18
said
for
18.
for 3 years. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So that's this period of time. So that way we'll start seeing actual action happen once free agency begins.
Well, who do you think when this period opens up at midnight Monday morning? who do you think that Washington's first guy is going to be? Do you think it's going to be a receiver, or do you think it's going to be some nondescript backup cornerback,
I think
that
much,
nobody's ever heard of?
last year there was it was very publicly announced that they were going for the wide receiver, and ends up staying with Dallas, right? But
Yeah, Amari
Amari
Cooper, right?
Cooper. So they're
Yeah,
very much like that was a very noisy thing. I think they're going to
yeah,
do that again. I think that they're going to shoot big. They're going to go for these names, and we've seen this already, right? With all the trades, like Washington's been in there for these QB trades. They've just been outbid, and
right.
honestly, I'm okay with that. That to me is a good sign. Like, hey, we want this big name, we want this talent to come to our team. But then when the price gets higher than they're willing to spend, they
You got to back off.
they back off, and I'm
Yeah,
okay with that. And I think
sure.
that you're going to see that again this time. I think that a couple of the big wide receiver names that we've been seeing going around, like I said, Corey Davis, Chris Samuels, another one. These are the
Yeah,
people that they're the top receivers that they're going to go try to go after and see if they can win that battle. And if they don't, that's when I think that they're gonna we'll start seeing the Logan Thomases, the
sure.
McKissicks that, to be honest, worked out really well for the
Yeah,
team
but really
last year.
nondescript names, though.
Yeah, J.D. McKissick wasn't exactly somebody who we thought was going to be a world burner. Turns out he was a very serviceable, receiver in the backfield for Washington last season.
Well, by the way, what's his status? What's his contract? Is
He's
he
still with the team. Yeah,
is he
he's
with the
yep.
club?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It was a three.
So
I
he
think
had
he
like a
signed a
two.
3-year deal.
Ah, nice. Okay, good. Because I think he's quite valuable.
No, he's an
Although
excellent back to
he
have.
was super valuable with Alex Smith in there because Alex Smith just liked to dump it off. But he's very valuable back,
He
absolutely.
not so yes, he's valuable in the fact that Alex Smith dumped off. But if you look at Scott Turner's offense, they like using the running backs
A
as
lot of.
receivers. So
Mm,
honestly, having someone like McKissick who can line up outside as a receiver was very valuable, and having the experience for the blocking, pass blocking was another thing. And I think as Antonio Gibson matures and learns that role, we'll see him more often. He
Sure.
actually had a lot of catches prior to being kind of banged up later in the season, and then that dropped off. But if he can stay healthy and learn that pass blocking role, I think we're going to see a lot more receptions from Antonio Gibson going forward.
Well, and that's probably why Curtis Samuel's name is mentioned quite often with Washington, because that's the kind of role he is. He was a running back in college who's turned
He
into a
did, yeah, did the
receiver
opposite
who
of
runs the
Antonio
ball a lot.
Gibson. Yeah, did the
Yeah,
opposite.
exactly. So I think he makes a lot of sense here in Washington, being that he can play both those roles, and that's the kind of offense they run, and it would make a lot of sense to me. Just I guess depends on if the price is right.
We will certainly find out. I think that he will start to hear some rumblings of who's going after who, starting tomorrow morning. I'm sure, first thing out the gate, and then we'll see come Wednesday when free agency begins who they're able to nab. So
Yeah,
honestly, this year, if they don't get the receiver they like in free agency, this is a pretty heavy wide receiver draft, and they're
sure.
shown that you can get some good value later in the later rounds, not necessarily 5, 6, and 7, but a second, third, or fourth round receiver can still do pretty good.
Yeah, but I think they have to address it in free agency, maybe as well as draft a young guy,
Yeah.
because they don't need just one receiver.
No.
They need two,
Another
three,
thing
even
to that they'll
four
have to,
backup tight end.
Harmon will be coming back from injury. They're not sure where he might fit in, so maybe
Yeah,
they bank on not having to. This is again, they're going to go try to go after these big names, but if they fall back and they're just like, no, that's too pricey, then that's fine, right? Like I like Will Fuller. I think that he can really open up an offense with the right QB. But if someone wants to sign him for 18 million a year, that's too much. For in my opinion, the guy hasn't been able to stay healthy, so let somebody else pay that price and duck out of that battle. It'll be interesting. And
Well,
and last year,
well, the way I look at the money, though, when you are paying somebody, it's not too much money until they underperform.
that's fair.
So I don't. I've always said this. I don't really care how much money they spend on certain players, as long as it fits into what they're trying to do as a team. So if it costs 18 million and Will Fuller comes here and he balls out and they win, and who cares that they gave him 18 million? But if they give him 18 million and then he's Josh Doxson or he's Paul Richardson, then obviously it was way too much money.
That's fair. I think that there are certain deals that they're never going to be able to live up to.
Yeah.
So the Hainsworth type deals were just like
Oh,
that's
it's,
not that wasn't a good deal, regardless of what he did on the field, which certainly wasn't worth a penny. The that was you just knew that was going to be a bad deal going in, and I think there
yeah,
are certain deals like that. There are some good deals. I'm okay tendering some of the restricted free agencies that Washington has. Kyle
sure.
Allen for 850,000,
It's nothing.
nothing. Might as well. That makes it very very easy to cut him later on if you think that Heineke and whoever else you pick up on the QB market, it makes him very expendable. And sorry for Kyle Allen if that happens, but
Right.
great for Washington if they're in a place where he becomes that fourth person who you just don't need to keep on the team. So
Yeah.
and the likely scenario, in my opinion, for that is Mariota, should be cut by the Raiders, and if not, I think Washington might be able to get him for a reasonable amount. They have the cap space to afford his deal. You use Mariota as a potential bridge quarterback, and then you get somebody like Mond or Ellinger in the fourth or later rounds, where maybe you can develop that person into being a good QB for Washington.
So is that where you are now with as everything is kind of shaken out over the last few weeks, and obviously you're not going to get all the guys that have either been traded or signed. Is that where you're at? You're like Mariota is the guy for me, and draft a guy later and develop him. Is that
I
where you stand?
I think that's probably the likely scenario. I don't
Mm,
think that they're really looking at Darnold right now, which is another name that pops up quite often with these deals. I just don't think that. I think that if they're going to go that young, if they're going to go with somebody who for 3 seasons hasn't looked very very good at all,
yeah,
they're going
you
to
said terrible stats.
yeah. So I think honestly, in that regards, they'd probably rather just go with a free agent like Trubisky, who when you look at the stats, aren't that bad. They're not super impressive. You look at the game tape, and that's where you really see the problems.
Yeah,
But maybe they feel. I think they'd feel stronger about Trubisky than they would about Darnold. I think that they do like Mariota. I think that they're playing chicken with the Raiders right now in Las Vegas, where they're like, we know you should be cutting him, so we're not willing to
yeah, they're
offer you
just kind of
more.
waiting
Yeah,
them
yeah,
out.
we'll offer you like a fifth rounder right now, but
Right.
we're not going any higher because we think that you're just going to release them and then we'll go ahead and take them then. Um, but honestly, we'll see because they did send two high profile, they actually sent three people, but two of them were pretty high up in the chain to Trey Lance's pro day.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know how I feel about that yet, because who who am I to judge what kind of quarterback Trey Lance is? But of course, you go and you look at his game film, if you will. You go to YouTube and you watch clips of him, both good and bad. And I don't know. I don't know where I am on him. He's obviously a world class runner, so that's great. But can he throw the ball? Who knows?
He
Some of the
had several
clips,
pretty passes during the pro day, but there are also some of the
everybody does.
you can see some of the inaccuracies that he's had. Now,
Yeah, I don't know.
I
Mm,
I think somebody else is going to fall in love with him and overspend for him. I think Washington likes
good.
him enough that if he's around at like the 12th pick, they might jump up for it, right? I
Really?
think
I
I
think
think
they would trade up to 12 to get
I think that
Trey Lance.
if he's around, just before the teens, right? So Washington's picking at 19, he's not going to be available then. But if I think this is a QB that they wouldn't mind, and this is again where if they end up taking, being able to sign someone like Mariota, you can sit Trey Lance for until Mariota starts stinking it up, and then fans will obviously be calling for a change. But
Yeah.
you can let him sit and develop him a little bit. Now, this league is not a league. I don't know if it has ever been really a league where you can just sit and wait with a QB, right? There's been, Aaron Rodgers sat for a little bit. You had other
Hmm.
QBs who sat, but realistically, QBs do need to come in and need to perform right away.
Yeah.
So
Well, so so you're saying that if if Trey Lance fell to 19, you would you would be giddy that
I'm
they
not going to
would be
go
able to
with
pick him up
giddy.
at 19.
I think that they would be
Well,
excited. I think they would be
yeah.
excited. I would like to see more. I think that from him, he's really only had the season. Again, you can see he is very raw. He's got the talent, but he's very
Sure.
raw,
Yeah.
and so he needs to go to a team that can be patient with that and can put that talent, that raw talent, into a position to win. Washington, I think, is actually in a decent position to do that. I
Hmm.
think that the O line is middle of the pack, but can be good. I think the defense is top 10. I don't think they're going to be one of the better defenses, top three defenses next year, but I do expect them to be above average, top 10. And with the O line being reasonable, with the defense being good, that is a good position for a rookie to come into because they don't have to force the issue. They don't need to sling the
Yeah.
ball, 50 times a game and be expected to win it. They just need to
Yeah.
not lose it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not a Trey Lance guy, but like I've said many times, I don't know anything about football. All I can do is look back at the decisions that were made and say, you screwed this part up. You drafted Dwayne Haskins. You screwed that up. Not this regime, but I'm saying
Was
I can
that
look at
so?
that. When
That
I looked
was
at
that's one of those. That's the hindsight 2020 thing, though.
right,
So Dwayne
that's
Haskins
what I'm
falling to
really good
15.
at.
They didn't trade up. They didn't spend anything to get
Right.
Haskins outside of that 15th pick, right? The 15th overall pick, which in hindsight, bad, awful.
Terrible. Right.
I was okay with the pick when it happened, and I'm going to stick by that
Sure.
because they didn't have to. They didn't spend any extra. They just used the pick that they had for a guy that at the time I thought that they wanted. Turns out that that was probably just
They
the
did not.
owner wanted, not the
Yeah.
coaches and everything. Yes, this is a person who realistically probably should have gone in the third or fourth rounds.
Right.
But QBs
So
are
they botched it.
valuable. Of course, when you look at it in
Yeah.
hindsight, they botched it. But
Right.
then you'd say that they probably botched the RG3 trade, which I don't think is true. They
Well, they
gave
got
up
a
a
good
lot
year
for
out
it.
of it.
They gave
Yeah.
up a lot for it. They had a good year. He got injured. You can't predict injuries. You can
Right.
predict whether or not somebody's going to be reasonable or bad. But even that is a crapshoot. That's why there's
Right.
how many draft picks are there every year, and then who actually sticks around? It's gambling for these teams.
Right.
It's
Right.
you know I saw
It's not a
somebody.
black and white
Yeah,
issue, right? It's it's not that if you had drafted him later, he would have been better, or if you had not drafted him and you had drafted somebody else, you would have been a better team. Jay Gruden would still have his job. All of that. It's not that easy to
No,
say.
it's
They could
guesswork.
have easily
It's
picked
guesswork.
somebody else and botched that pick as well. Or they could have picked somebody and completely changed the franchise, and Jay Gruden would still be here and they'd be contender. Who knows? All we can do is look back on it and say, you botched that. Please don't botch this next one.
Yeah. The Washington football team is in a good spot now, and we'll see what they do. Now, if they are in fact the team that they were this last year and improve upon that, then you expect them to be picking in the back half of the first round. And
Right.
if that's the case, then using next year's draft pick, which could be 20 or higher, to move up to a 12 to grab a QB that could be the QB for the next 5 years, right? That's not something that Washington has had in a very long time as a QB for
Yeah.
5 years.
Right. But they've got to love him. They've got to
Yeah,
love him.
I don't think they move
They
up if
can't
they
be,
don't love him.
oh, yeah, if he drops to 12 and all of a sudden they start scrambling around. Do we like this guy?
Yeah,
Is this
no,
somebody because
I
he's dropped
I
that we
think
should
they're
go
already
after?
having those conversations right now as
That
far as
if
the
it
draft
happens, this is
strategy.
what we do.
If he gets to this far, this is what we're going to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, sending who they sent to the pro day, it's either smoke and mirrors and trying to get somebody else to take them, but there were
Right.
30 teams there that were represented, and
Yeah.
you're only allowed to send people to these pro days.
Yeah.
You don't send your GM and offensive coordinator to a pro day
If
for smoke and
you're not
mirrors.
serious. Well,
They were
maybe you do.
they wanted to kick the tires on
Yeah.
Trey Lance and see what was available.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Like I said, I think that there are guys who are later in the rounds who are somebody who you can potentially develop. There was a fourth round pick that was just signed to a huge QB deal.
Monster.
Maybe you get the next Dak Prescott in the fourth round, third or fourth round. You know, first round is important. You want to make sure that that pick is somebody who's impactful. So we'll see how that comes up. These, maybe they go offensive line because you know, they need to build those trenches. There's a lot of offensive linemen who've hit the market
Yeah.
this year. One of them wasn't Sheriff though. He was tagged for the second straight season. He's
Yep.
being paid $18 million. He already signed it. He ran. That was not a decision for him. It was
No.
an automatic. Cool. Give me $18
He
million.
he could have not he could not have gotten to the park faster than he did. As soon as they said, "We're tagging you for 18 million." Okay, what time do I need to be there to sign this
I
thing?
think the last I had seen
Oh,
is it's $4 million more than any other offensive lineman. Not even just guards, offensive
yeah.
linemen, because the O line is bunched together when it comes to the tag. So
Right.
the tackles are the ones you usually pay big money to. Now, what's interesting here is Washington can sign Sheriff to a long-term deal all the way up to July 15th.
Right.
I mentioned there are a lot of offensive linemen who are on the market right now, to include several quality Pro Bowl guards.
Sure.
I think Sheriff, his agent, wants to see where those deals land, and then he's going to go to Washington and be like, this guy is not only a Pro Bowler like them, he's an All Pro. So
Sure.
this $18 million, these guys just got 13, $14 million. This 18, he needs to get that this year, and then he needs big money for the next few years. So
Okay.
I think that's what it'll take. If not, if they don't get a deal done and this is where the gamble comes, right? They need to know where they stand with Sheriff before the draft, because if they don't feel like they can sign him to that long-term deal, if he's going to hit free agency, then I think that
Yeah.
you're going to see them pick an offensive lineman, especially an
Pretty
interior
high.
one, and probably when they have 4 picks within the first 3 rounds, you're going to see one of those being an offensive lineman.
Yeah, you might be right, but I have to think that they're going to sign him to a long-term deal. You don't you don't franchise a guy for the second year in a row
And then
at
let
that
him go.
outrageous price and then just let him go. I
Yeah,
don't think you do that.
obviously you wouldn't do that. It's not like they'd have a history of doing that. Kirk Cousins.
Right. Right. Well, Cousins was betting on himself and
Oh,
he did a
did an amazing
fantastic
job.
job of that.
Guaranteed money first franchise tag, guaranteed money second franchise tag. Washington wasn't willing to pay him what he wanted. Minnesota guaranteed the entire contract.
Right.
They also extended him, so I think that they're okay with what he provides. Washington probably would have been better off, signing him to a long term deal the first time. At least it would have given them a reasonable QB play, whether or not you like Kirk Cousins or not. He is he is there's not even 32 guys who can play QB at an NFL level, right? We've said this
Right.
before on this cast. He is one of them. He's probably in the top 15 of people who can actually play the QB position. Is he as good as the top five? No.
No.
Can he show, can he have a game as good as them? Yes. So, you know, you're Washington's
Can
still
you
looking for
imagine?
that person.
Yeah, can you imagine this team right now with a quality quarterback like Kirk Cousins on the team?
Well, some people would say
They
that Heineke is that quality person. I
Oh, we gotta
think
stop with that.
they are, you know, I'm pretty sure marijuana is legal in DC. So
Is it?
yep,
All right.
I'm pretty sure those people are the ones who are living in DC. And I like Heineke. I think the Heineke hype is fun. Uh, they signed him to a backup deal. He will be a backup. I think
Right.
that when he spot starts, or if he has to come in for a game, I'm not worried. I'm excited. There was a we've had the Washington has had a lot of backup QBs that I'd never wanted to see hit the field.
Right.
The Becks of the
But he's
world.
not one of them.
He's not one of them. No, I think that
No.
honestly. So I think that what we've seen from him, he will provide exciting and good quality play. The worry will always be that he's just going to get injured again because he's a small guy. I think he's smaller than you. It's been a while since
He
we've been together.
definitely he's definitely smaller than me. Most people are.
So the guy,
Yeah, I've packed on a few COVID pounds. Absolutely.
yeah, I think he topped. He's less than 6 feet tall. He's maybe 200 pounds sopping wet. So
Yeah.
I've lost 30 pounds through all my health issues over the last month.
Oh, jeez.
But I'm 6'3", so I mean I had some pounds to lose, and so
Right.
I'm still pretty hefty. But I would not last on the NFL right now. I could barely walk to the bathroom at this point. So it's even just
Yeah,
sitting
you're
here,
not NFL ready.
not
You
no.
need training camp and all that to get bulked back up and everything.
So there were a
The
couple other.
another reason to sign Sheriff to a long-term deal is that you're able to spread that cap money out, right? So right now it's an $18 million 1 year deal.
Mhm.
All 18 million goes against your cap. So just throwing numbers out there, you sign him to a 4 year, $80 million deal, whatever it is, 60 guaranteed, signing bonuses and all that. Maybe this year he only counts 9 million against the cap. And then you've got more space to find other free agents. So that's another big incentive to be able to sign him to a long-term deal and quickly, because like we talked about, free agency's right around the corner.
It is. Washington's not hurting in cap space this year, and we've talked about it on Twitter. I can't remember if we've talked about it here on the cast, but the cap is no one cares about the cap. People find ways to look at what the Saints are doing out out in New
Right.
Orleans, right? That people can magically find their way around the cap. You're seeing a couple QBs who are helping out their teams, Tom Brady and Mahomes, who are restructuring their deals
Right.
and
Right.
giving more cap space. It works out for both parties because it actually gives the player more money right now, but
Right.
it makes it so that way the team has some ability. And you're starting to see this a lot more players willing to do that, restructure. Now, I think this is something we'll start seeing a lot more of in future years. This year, you're seeing a lot more of it because the cap dropped significantly, right? They're at
Mm-hmm.
$182 million. If we weren't in COVID conditions, this should be a cap that's nearing or over 200 million.
Right,
So
right.
teams were having to really do those gymnastics to bend their way through and make it under the cap. So more and more players are willing to restructure this year to stay with the team, and I think they're going to start. So the players will start seeing the benefit of that. Of hey, I'm getting a little bit more money now, getting a deal for a little bit longer or whatever, and maybe the team's able to actually stretch and do something and pick up these players to make us contender. So I think we'll start
Yeah.
seeing that a little bit more. Um, it'll be interesting.
Looking back on it now, I definitely should have paid attention more in math class and algebra and all that, so I could have been if not an agent, I could have been like a bean counter for these teams to help them with their cap space. Because those guys, I imagine, get paid a lot of money to figure out how to manipulate the cap. That, like you said, with Dallas, with Dak's contract, the richest contract in history, weren't they right up against the cap?
They
And they were
they
able to
they
do
were,
it.
and they found a
Yeah,
way, and
so you
they
can
they
do it.
restructured several deals right afterwards to make it happen. So we'll see how it works out in the end. But I think it'll be pretty interesting. If you didn't, if do you at least have the numbers to be able to break down people for fantasy football and or do research? Could you do that? Because this is something that we didn't plan to talk about this, but this is something that popped up that kind of got me going. So, and I don't blame the original poster. She said she forgot Terry McLaurin and her rankings. That's that's fine. I'm not gonna. I think a lot of fans. She said we're being classless and mean. There's no need to do that. She is an NFL researcher for the NFL Network, and she's. If you go out there, if you hit me up on my Twitter at the Nathan Perry, and you'll see what I'm talking about here is she ranked the 2019 through 2021 wide receive classes moving forward. And this is looking at it kind of through the fantasy football lens.
Okay.
And I'm going to read you the top 12. And I already kind of mentioned she forgot somebody important. Maybe why I'm wearing this jersey today,
Right.
right?
Right.
So A.J. Brown, 1. DK Metcalf, 2. Jamar Chase, 3. Justin Jefferson, 4. I think that might be a little low for him. CeeDee Lamb, 5. Devontae
Hmm.
Smith, 6. T. Higgins at 7. Jerry Jeudy at 8. Chase Claypool at 9. Deontay Johnson, 10. Brandon Ayuk at 11. And Rashad Bateman at 12.
Yeah, I don't know how you leave McLaurin out. And if you're an NFL researcher, I'm not attacking her, but if you're an NFL researcher, shouldn't you have McLaurin in there? And how do you just
So,
forget somebody?
she said that she had him in her mind. This is what she tweeted out. Um, she's at Ball Blastum is her Twitter handle. She said that she had when she was going through this and had this, she had Terry McLaurin in there in her mind,
Sure,
and then
she
when she
should,
started
right?
listing, she just spaced and dropped them from the
Mm,
list.
okay.
Again, I'm not here to blast her on that. I think that,
Mm,
looking at her analysis, I actually think that there's a lot of good stuff that she's done. She says, hey, just for the record, I forgot him. I've mentioned this a few times. You guys are being classless. If I were to put him in this list, I'd put him at 8. I asked her, she hasn't responded yet, but I did ask. I wanted to see what that justification is for 8 because that puts him behind players like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who I would not put him behind. This is Terry McLaurin is a receiver who has done so much with bad QB play. If
hmm.
Washington gets a serviceable QB, not even a good QB, just serviceable because they've had less than serviceable QBs,
Right.
playing QB play. Again, I like Alex. I think that obviously the team won with him, but when you look at the QB play, not all that exciting. You get a serviceable QB that's throwing 250 and like 2 touchdowns a game. I don't care how many interceptions. We can have a Jameis Winston here who throws, all those interceptions, but at least throws
Mhm.
for the yards and the TDs. I think you're going to see Terry McLaurin's numbers jump up significantly, and you'll see it
And you'll see his ranking
improving
should be higher, is what
higher
you're
than
saying.
8. I
Higher
mean,
than 8?
obviously he shouldn't be forgotten in the first place, but higher
Yeah.
than 8. But we'll see.
But by the
I'm
way, you
interested in finding
mentioned,
her reasoning for putting him at 8.
yeah. No, you mentioned Jameis Winston. Would you be good? Let's just hypothetical, complete hypothetical here, obviously. But Jameis Winston, 20 million, 1 year, would you take that? A prove
No,
it deal. You're our starter, 20 million.
I'd want
What?
two
See what you got.
years. I'd want 2 years. Incentive heavy. Obviously, this is. I'm trying to go for a team friendly deal here, so I'd want
Right.
2 years. So that way, hey, if you're good, we have you locked up for another year, and we can work out a long-term deal.
But
So
what if
two,
he's
two,
terrible?
two there.
Then
Then
you got to pay him for a second year.
again, we talked about how the cap doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As more people get vaccinated, you're going to start seeing the stadiums open. I really hope so. Again, season ticket holder. I really
Right.
want to physically go to the games, and so you're going to see that the cap's going to raise. It's not going to matter. You sign them to 2 years, team friendly, which means incentive heavy. Maybe not 20 million a year, but maybe 12 million a year. And then if we make the playoffs, if we make the Super Bowl, if you hit these stats and everything, that's when you'll see it bumped. I think that'd be
Yeah.
a better deal. And absolutely, I would take Jameis Winston here. This
I
is a
think
guy
I'd take.
who's thrown for over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. He's had those, that year that he had the 30 interceptions. That was bad. The guy had LASIK surgery, so his eyesight should be better. This is a guy who was, practically blind, and he's doing this kind of stuff out on the field to now
Yeah.
having the surgery so he can see better. He sat behind Drew Brees. I think the Saints are a fairly well-run organization where he could have learned quite a bit. I think this is a QB that I think that the Saints will probably end up re-signing him. But if not, I think he's somebody who Washington should definitely look at.
Yeah.
You got
Well,
those bees buzzing around you again. Oh, you're
you'll
good
hear
to go.
me.
Oh, maybe not.
How about now?
Now you
We
are.
good?
Now you're good.
All right.
You got rid of the bee.
Well, you'll hear me. Hey, you'll hear me say this 100 times, many times per show, that I don't know anything. I'm just a dope fan, right? But I think I would be okay with Jameis Winston being here on a short term, prove it kind of deal. But what I don't know, what I don't understand is that when Drew Brees went down and everybody said, okay, here's the time for Jameis to come in and prove himself, and yet he couldn't beat out Taysom Hill, who can't even throw the ball 30 yards downfield.
I think there's a few things that went into that. One, Jameis Winston, whether or not he, this, I'm pretty sure last year, I might be misremembering, was his first year with the Saints, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is somebody who isn't as familiar. Taysom Hill's familiar with the playbook. Not only that, there are hefty amounts of that playbook that are written for Taysom Hill to be in the QB spot. They had just paid Taysom Hill starting QB money,
Yeah.
for a gadget player who is, I'm pretty sure, north of 30, right? So the Saints kind of put themselves in position to have Taysom Hill be that player. I think that, and you saw this play out in the season, Jameis Winston was the QB who came in when Brees got hurt during the game. And then the starter was Taysom Hill because they already had game plans for Taysom Hill. And Winston was somebody who, much like Cam Newton, who, thank you, isn't coming to Washington.
Right.
This is, somebody who didn't have OTAs, signed on with a new team, new playbook and everything during COVID, where they didn't have the ability to work with that offense.
Mm-hmm.
So you expect them not to necessarily be at that level.
Yeah,
So we'll see because
that's fair enough.
honestly, I think what will be telling is if the Saints don't even try to re-sign him. That to me
Right.
will be the thing that is just like, okay, maybe it's not worth kicking the tires on, but it could be they're having their own cap issues. Maybe they're not able to afford him. That'll be something to watch out for. Cam Newton,
Yeah.
I'm happy he's back with the Patriots and not with Washington. I think for me, it's just I feel like his shoulder has hurt it, but I think that he will have a much better season this year with the Patriots than he did last season, where he threw for I think he had like 15 starts, the least amount in like 20 years, the amount of touchdowns, so like 9 touchdowns
Yeah.
passes. Um,
Right.
I think he'll have a much better season there. Um, just glad that better season will be out of
Somewhere
Washington
else.
because
That's right.
I don't think that he's the right QB right now for Washington.
Agreed.
There are a couple
Absolutely.
other tendered restricted free agents that we should bring up. Danny Johnson, return guy. I think he did serviceable, cheap deal, special teams guy. I think that's a reasonable thing to for them to tender him one. Cam Sims, wide receiver, is another one that they tendered to restricted free agency. What did you feel about Cam? Do you feel like he's somebody who's going to stick with the team here for longer than another couple seasons?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a good depth guy. He's to me, he reminds me of like a James Thrash from back in the day.
Okay.
Somebody who is just does everything correctly, plays a lot of special teams, fills in when you need to. Most guys, when they get playing time, will give you serviceable numbers. And I think that's what he did. He got a lot of playing time, and therefore he gave you numbers that look pretty good. Is he a long term solution? Absolutely not. I don't think so. He's a depth guy, plays special teams, keep him around. Absolutely. No issues with
But
that.
he wasn't drawing double teams and he wasn't preventing teams from feeling confident to put two, maybe three people over on
Yeah.
McLaurin's side. That's fair. I think that we'll see how how Harmon comes back, whether or not they sign a free agent, who they get during the draft. But Cam Sims is wide receiver 4. Happy with that. I think that's a fair spot for him.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
All right, so we're going to move on from Washington football team. Let's move to their baseball team. Nationals during spring training. I don't think the record matters very much. It's the preseason. That's not as important. But the players themselves have been looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. What they don't have this year is they don't have a lot of questions, which is great. They go into the year, they pretty much know who their starting five is. At least they know who their starting four pitchers are. In their fifth, I think they're pretty well locked in with Joe Ross at five. Everybody seems to be healthy. Strasburg coming off surgery seems to be healthy. Max is healthy. Lester, we'll see how he adjusts from his minor surgery. All their position players are pretty much set. They're just kind of tweaking things at the end of the roster, kind of like what the Washington football team does towards the end of training camp when you figure out who the sixth receiver is going to be, who the fifth cornerback is going to be, and stuff like that. So I think that's good. They're solid. No injuries to worry about. Nobody's slumping or anything like that. So I think they're in a good spot. And there's only what is today, the 14th? And so there's only a couple weeks left until we hit opening day, which is going to be
Okay.
exciting. Other than there won't be any fans in Nats Park, which is the only team in the entire Major League Baseball that will not have any fans as of now.
Yeah,
We'll see. It
the
could
Orioles
change.
just up 95. They will have some fans there. Beautiful park in Camden Yards.
Sure.
Yep, but the Nationals, the only team not to allow fans. The Rangers allowing one, full stadium,
100%.
100%. But that's Texas.
That's Texas. That's politics for you.
Yep. So I do hope that, and so the decision isn't written in stone right now that the Nationals
Right.
won't have, They're trying to work with the mayor of DC. They're trying to see what would be possible. Now, you've heard it from Beal out in the Wiz with the fans coming to the Wizards games. Obviously the Caps, they would love to have some fans as well. They quieted the 3,000 fans in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The Nats, they would like to see some fans. The players want to have fans. But one of the things that I think has been pretty consistent with most of the players that I've heard amongst all sports is we want it to be safe as well. They don't want to be the reason why another outbreak happens, and that's understandable. I mean, if you look back at the history of this thing in Italy, for instance, the super spreader event there was a soccer match. It was a League One match, and I think they tied back more than 30,000 cases to that game.
Wow.
And a lot of them ended up, unfortunately, especially at the early stages of this COVID and an environment there in Italy, which is where I was currently living at that time, is they saw a lot of deaths as well. So they don't want to be responsible for that. So understandable.
Who
I'm
does?
excited.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I'm excited for the next play when they do open it up to fans. Definitely going to be looking to get some tickets there and watch them play. And the first full, see if it's a full season with everything that's going on, but should be a full season since their World Series victory. So, whether or not you consider that shortened season real or not, if there's an asterisk next to the world champion, maybe the Nats are the defending champions in a full season.
Well, one thing we know for sure is that they have not been able to raise their banner, celebrate on the field with the fans, all of that you normally get to have the next year. Haven't had any of that, and they're holding out from doing that until they can get fans back in the stadium. So that might not even happen until the middle of summer or maybe even in the fall. Who knows? Are you going to do it when they allow 2,000 fans in the stadium? Probably not. So it'll be nice when that finally happens and they'll be able to have a big celebration because the fans deserve that. The players, not all of them will be there, but a large part of them will still be with the team. So it'll be nice to have that celebration finally a year and a half, 2 years later.
Agreed. It would be pretty nice. Looking forward to that opening day coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We are going to continue, though, talking about teams that are playing real games during our GBU segment. It is still unsponsored. So if you would like to sponsor this section, this is the good, the bad, the ugly here on Ref the District. Just let us know. Reach out to us on refthedistrict@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to have you sponsor this segment. I mean, there was some good sponsorship stuff going on. Over the weekend, some people not too happy with the coach naming the sponsors like it was a NASCAR deal, but hey, that's what it is. I mean,
from the golf.
Yeah, so I was just like, hey,
whatever it takes. Yeah. Well, why do you begrudge somebody the ability to make money?
Yeah. New York Health, I think, is what it is. They got like 2 of the conference championship games, like the Pac-12 and like the ACC is brought by like New York Life or something like this. So you need those kind of deals to keep things going. We would love for you to keep GBU going. So go ahead and reach out to us. Again, that's refthedistrict@gmail.com. The good, the bad, the ugly. Stoner, start us off with the good.
All right, so here's the good. Oh, and by the way, did you know that a Michigan State basketball is now sponsored so that whenever you mention Michigan State, you have to say Michigan State basketball presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Yes.
Or something to that effect.
That's actually that's what I was talking about at first.
Oh, that's what you were talking about.
You brought up the golfer.
Oh, I thought, okay, yeah. Well, because I think a couple weeks ago or last week when I think it was Bryson DeChambeau won a golf tournament and he got on there for after his win interview, and all he did was just start thanking all of his sponsors, like NASCAR does.
No, a lot of people aren't happy with Michigan State being sponsored that way, but
these are tough times. You got to come up with creative ways to generate income.
It's
And if Rocket Mortgage is going to give them money, then why not? I don't have any problem with it. It just sounds a little funny. But I remember when I was in Texas and they built their new baseball stadium and they called it, oh man, I'm probably going to botch it because I can't remember it now, but it was anyway, I can't remember, but it was this long name that they were trying to copy like Camden Yards, and everybody just hated it. But after a year or so, that was the name of the place, and nobody had a problem with it. So probably in a couple of years, you're going to talk about Michigan State basketball presented by Rocket Mortgage or whatever it is, and everyone's going to say, "Yeah, okay, that's just kind of how we do things now."
I think if this continues being the norm, those sponsorships happen. I think honestly that might start paving the way for student athletes to get paid for what they do
Yeah,
in a
that's
non-scholarship
around the
form.
corner.
I
Yeah,
think that's you'll start seeing a lot more of that. We'll
that's
have those
coming.
discussions when it
Yeah.
comes.
All right. Sorry,
But I
I
want
got
to
us
get
off
to the
track a little
good
bit.
and the
All
good, the
right.
bad,
So
the
the
ugly.
good, the good are the Caps. In this last week, they went 4-0 over this past week. Three of them are against the Flyers, which the Flyers are right there in the fifth spot, trying to get a playoff spot, and it's always good to give the Flyers a beatdown.
Shout out to the Caps Twitter people, the people who manage their Twitter
Oh, what
account.
they do?
Uh, they mentioned the three losses for the Philadelphia Flyers. So the Caps won. I have a couple pictures because I was like, there's no way that they're going to be allowed to keep this stuff on their Twitter. Like they were just bashing the fans, the Philadelphia fans. So there's some high profile Philadelphia Flyer fans, and they were going back and forth. But what they did was they wrote out Philadelphia Flyers, but they put bold L's, the three bold L's, and
In the
for
name.
Philadelphia, and it was just like it was. I was like, man, these guys, you're winning. You're winning Twitter right now. Caps Twitter handle, you're doing
Yeah,
good.
nice job, Caps Twitter handle. So over the week, Ovechkin scored in 3 of the 4 games, which he had been a little bit snake bitten for a while, so that was good. He's now at 716 goals all time, one away from tying Phil Esposito for sixth place all time. So that's awesome. And they are now second place in the division. Can't catch the Isles. The Isles have won 8 in a row, I believe. But a great week for the Caps. 4-0, three of them. But they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. They
Yep.
beat New Jersey. They're a terrible team. Beat the Flyers, who are a fifth place team. So they did what they're supposed to do, which is great. They blew a couple of leads. One game they had a 4-1 lead that they blew, but they still won. They had another game where they had a 4-1 lead and they narrowed it down to 4-3, but they still won that. So no problem. They probably got a little lackadaisical, but they went 4-0. That's all that
In the end,
matters.
they got the W. They got the two
They got
points,
the
and
W's.
that's the important part. You do want to see
That's
the play
what matters.
be cleaned up. You don't want
Sure.
teams to be coming back into the game. But right now, that those 2 points are what's important. Like I said, I think that by the end of the season, it'll be a lot closer to the Isles. But the Isles are playing some good hockey right now, so we'll
Yeah.
see how it strings together at the end.
Yeah, they got a good coach. That's why.
Yeah,
I love
you
me
know
some
who
Barry
doesn't have
Trotz.
a good coach? The bad section
Uh
of our good, the bad, the ugly.
oh, that's right. Why is Scott Brooks still on this coaching staff? I'll never know. All right, so the Wiz, the bad. The Wiz went 0-3 after the All Star break. I don't know if Bradley Beal is just straight up tired, if he may be injured a little bit,
He was
or
banged up. He was a game time decision uh,
yeah,
2 nights ago, and ended up saying, "Hey, I can play." Had an okay game, not a great game, especially not by his standards. Sat
right,
out the game yesterday against the Bucks, and then
yeah,
we got to see All-Star MVP level Westbrook,
yeah,
who
that was great.
absolutely just a monster game from him. Kept the Wizards in that game. In fact, the Wizards were leading, late, but the Bucks
Hmm.
proved too much in the end. Last 40 seconds, it was tied up 119 all, and then
Yep.
Bucks pulled away 125, 119. But Westbrook, absolutely monster, triple double, 42 points. in there and shot efficiently. Only I think it was only a few turnovers
Yeah.
on the night. Well, I think 6. So he had 12 assists and 6 turnovers. So 2-1.
Yeah.
Not the greatest, but when he's doing everything else for the team, I don't know what you need. Rui, great game for Rui. And you
Yep.
like to see that. This is a kid who has less than a full season under his belt. This was his
Mhm.
72nd game. You want to see that more consistently. Uh, but for the fact that they didn't have Bradley Beal, that was a good
And
game on the second night of a back to back, right? The
yeah.
back half of a back to back. I think that the Wiz
Yeah.
played well. I think that part of the reason why they lost was some bad coaching at the end.
Of
Scott Brooks.
course.
Scott Brooks would tell you though that there was some bad ref stuff at the end where the team wasn't getting the fouls that they were supposed to be getting. Um, so, but yeah, 3 losses in a row. We mentioned it before the All Star break. They kind of got a murderer's row coming up. They got to be able to win some of these games. I think that this was a little bit more promising than the last 2 games, especially the game before where they got blown out by Memphis.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start seeing some turnaround there because they are right now. I think they've lost 5 of their last 6,
Yep.
so
That's right.
it's not they're not looking too good right now, despite the fact that they entered the All Star break on a high note.
Well, in the last 3 games since the All Star break, they've given up 127, 127, 125. And when they were on their little bit of a heater, when they went 8-3, I think they were giving up like an average of 114, which is a huge improvement, and that's helping them win games. So, giving up 127 a night is not going to get it done.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
ugly, but we gotta.
No, that's bad.
That's bad, but giving up 125 is pretty ugly. But it's not the
Yeah.
ugly we're going to be talking about. You didn't want to
Yeah.
even tell me. It's not even in our
That's right.
show notes what this is. Now you do have you put down quite a bit. I'm going to let people know this. All right, you put down your
Okay.
401k. You put
Yes.
down you even said your life. I won't take that from you.
Well, you're not. Yeah.
But you put down quite a bit here. I have my own ugly that I want to talk about. I have
Right.
a tab open right now. I can
Okay.
take a screenshot if you want it, or you can just trust me of what I want to talk about, just in case we're on the same page here and I just got
Yeah.
your 401k.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't worry. I don't know if you've seen the market. Well, the market's been surging, but still. All right. So I had a couple of choices. One was I was going to say the ugly is that the Nats were going to be the only team not to have fans. Or I was going to talk about the coaches for Michigan and Maryland almost getting in a fight on the court. Juwan Howard and Mark Turgeon. That's kind of ugly. But do you remember? I keep playing with my glasses. I'm sorry. I got readers. I have to be able to kind of
So,
see what's on my notes here. But do you remember about maybe a month ago? Maybe it's a little bit longer when there was this viral video of this lawyer who was video conferencing into with the judge and with the court and everything, right? And he was a cat. Remember, he was like the
oh
cat,
yes,
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
everyone is laughing because he couldn't figure out how to take the cat whatever
It's like I
off of
promise I'm not a
his.
cat.
Yeah, and then he says, "I'm not really a cat," and that was hilarious, and I thought that was the greatest thing. But did you see recently that in California, this surgeon was in the middle of surgery and video conferenced into his traffic court date while he's performing surgery? And the judge asked him, "Are you performing surgery right now while you're calling in?" And the surgeon said, "Well, yes, I am, but I have my assistant here, so it's not going to be a problem." And the judge wanted to climb through the screen and strangle the guy, saying, "You need to worry about the welfare of your patient,
Yeah.
not traffic court."
As
Okay,
somebody
we
who
can
just went through
reschedule
surgery,
this.
that is not
Yeah,
okay.
can you imagine?
That is
Can
not
you
okay.
imagine if your surgeon was video conferencing in, and so now this doctor is being investigated by the California Medical Board and possibly take his license away? What rational human being? I'm rational. Most people around me are rational. This man went to medical school and became a surgeon, one of the most intelligent people in the world, and he thought to himself, while I'm performing surgery, I'm going to video conference into my traffic court.
I
That's ugly. That's
that
ridiculous.
is
And I can't
ridiculous. That
believe
is
this guy.
ridiculous. I wonder if in California with all the COVID things, they've made these virtual court dates and they've told people like, hey, because it's virtual, there's no getting out of it. I don't know if that's the case. I'm pretty sure surgery is a legit reason not to show up to a virtual traffic thing.
Yeah. Am I keeping my 401k?
You're keeping your 401k.
That you didn't come up with
That
that
did not come up. I did not know
as the
that was a thing. Again, I recently went through surgery where they had to bring an extra surgeon in. Okay, so it was, I was that bad off. That's why it's been the recovery has also been just, heinous. The
yeah.
uh, the so I agree that that's not good. That's bad. That's that's that's
It's
that's
ugly.
pretty good. That
Is
is.
what it is. It's ugly.
It's not as ugly as Matt Rowan. Are you familiar with that
Matt
name?
Matt Rowan. Give
You,
me a clue.
you might not be familiar with the name because this is just
Oh, okay.
a small town, maybe not small town. It's a Oklahoma high school basketball announcer, Matt Rowan.
Oh, yeah.
This is ugly.
I
Okay.
thought maybe this might have been a little too controversial to bring up, but I
No, I don't
definitely
think it's
consider.
controversial at all. I think Matt Rowan
Yeah.
is an ugly person. Okay. I
Yes.
don't care about his actual physical looks. I think as a human being that he is ugly. And I say this in case you're not familiar with the situation. He hurled racist insults during a live stream of state basketball game in Oklahoma. Okay, he used he the what it was he was upset that the players were kneeling, so he
Mm-hmm.
felt compelled to slur racist insults towards those players, and then because again he's an ugly person. That's the worst of it. I'll say that. I don't want his other action here to outshine the fact that what he did was ugly and unacceptable and absolutely the worst, like one of the worst things you can do as a human being. Okay. He then doubles down on the whole situation by extending an apology. But in that apology, he says that he's a type 1 diabetic and his blood sugar was the reason why he was acting out of character.
Mm-hmm.
Not an
Mm-hmm.
apology, not something that's like if you talk to people who are diabetic, they will tell you that when your blood sugar levels aren't normal, you can act out of sorts. But most of them that I've seen have come through and said, you don't change and start slur. You might slur your words, you might be kind of dizzy and out of sorts, but you don't just start
But
going
no
on a
racist
rant where
slurs.
you're calling people the N word and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So me, Matt Rowan is our ugly of the week. Just absolutely heinous what he did. Now I'm a little riled up, and this is a bad thing to be talking about. I think it's what we need to be talking about because honestly, this is
Mm.
unacceptable behavior. And if you feel that way, you need to reevaluate your life. Now,
I had low blood sugar once, Nathan, and you know what I yelled out? Give me an effing cookie, because
that's
that's what
way
most
more acceptable.
rational people would
Yeah.
say when they have low blood sugar.
Uh, that's the ugly. I want to move off the ugly. We are at about an hour right now. We've been on for a while, but I do want to extend a little bit because I
Okay.
don't want to end on something
Bad no. Sure.
that's that ugly. And I want to go to a team that we don't talk about very often, and that's our Washington Mystics. Okay, recently they signed Natasha Cloud to a multi-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
They've won the championship in 2019, and recently they started the District of Change. Okay, so I want you to go out. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, go out to the Washington Mystics page, watch and follow them through the District of Change. I think that's something that's worth our time and your time. So that is what I would like to close it on. We've got March Madness coming up. We'll be talking more about the teams. We didn't even get to Georgetown, who
Oh
out of
yeah,
nowhere,
out of nowhere.
wins the conference championship. Punched their ticket. A lot of teams on the bubble not happy because Oregon State did it. Oregon State was another team not going to be part of the tournament. Punched their ticket. There's going to be some teams
Yeah,
that aren't happy. Georgetown's happy. Maryland didn't make it to the championship for the Big Ten, but should be, will be easily in the March Madness. So we'll be talking some March
I think so.
Madness next week. This week, I want to thank you for joining us out here on Ref the District. If you haven't already, please like our page, subscribe to the content. We much appreciate those who already have. Please do that. That makes us feel warm and fuzzy. I'm recovering. You'll make me feel good. If I feel good, I'm going to heal better. So please do that. Also, head out to our Twitter page at Ref the District and like and follow us there. You can even like our personal pages, the Stone Dog 23 or the Nathan Perry out there on Twitter. You'll find us. We engage with Ref the District all the time. So please do that. Stoner, thank you for joining us. I know you're going to be back in town for next week's show. And do we want to maybe give people a sneak preview of what's going to happen?
Yeah, we've got a really big guest coming up next week. We have, I think we can officially announce it. It's been confirmed that we will have Army linebacker John Radigan will be joining us next week on the show. John is getting ready to graduate and he is preparing for the NFL draft where he is expected to be drafted. So we're really excited about being able to talk to John Radigan from West Point. That's going to be a fantastic guest next week.
All right, looking forward to next week. This has been Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. He's the Stoner. We'll see you.